All right, welcome. Today we're diving into a story that's been unfolding for, believe it or not, 4,000 years. But this isn't the biography of a person. It's the biography of a disease, cancer.
So here's how we're going to tackle this huge story. We're breaking it down into these 6 parts. Think of it like mapping out a long, complicated war, with each part being a major campaign. First up, the unspoken enemy.
Okay, so our story doesn't start in some high-tech lab. No, it starts in a world of silence, a world of fear, a time when this disease was so feared it didn't even have a name you could print in a newspaper.
I mean, just think about that for a second. Can you imagine a world where the word cancer is so taboo, so shameful, that a paper like the New York Times has to call it a disease of the chest wall? That was the reality, right up into the 1950s. It was this hidden thing, this family secret only talked about in whispers, if at all.
And this wasn't a new problem. For literally thousands of years, humanity knew about this disease. From ancient Egypt on, the diagnosis was basically the same. There is no treatment. It was just this long, bleak history of hitting a brick wall of absolute despair.
But then, things started to change. That wall of despair started to crack. And it all started with one man, a pathologist, a doctor of the dead, who decided to do something radical, fight for the living.
Down in a basement lab in Boston, this guy, Dr. Sidney Farber, he chose his enemy very, very carefully. See, Farber wasn't your typical doctor. He was quiet, methodical, and just relentless. And he picked a fight with the one disease nobody else would touch, the one everyone thought was a lost cause, childhood leukemia.
Now here's where Farber's genius really shines. He saw an opportunity where everyone else just saw tragedy. You see, all good science starts with measurement. And while most cancers hid deep inside the body, impossible to track, leukemia was different. Its footprint was right there in the blood. You could literally see the enemy's strength in a single drop. It was the perfect, measurable battleground to test a brand new weapon.
And what he did next? Well, it was the birth of chemotherapy. It was an absolutely desperate gamble. He had this theory that leukemia cells needed folic acid to grow, so he got his hands on a chemical designed to block it. He was basically using a poison to fight a poison, injecting this toxic stuff into dying kids. And then, something incredible happened. Remissions. They were brief, yeah, the cancer would come roaring back. But for the first time in all of human history, a drug had made this invincible emperor retreat.
It all came down to the story of one small boy, 2-year-old Robert Sandler. For decades, he was just known as RS in Farber's scientific papers. But his temporary remission, it was everything. It was the proof. It showed that a penicillin for cancer might actually be possible. His short, tragic life became the spark that proved this war could be fought.
So, Farber's tiny victory in his basement lab, it lit a fuse. But a scientific breakthrough isn't enough, right? The battle needed a general, someone who could take this fight out of the lab and into the limelight, to turn it into a national crusade.
And that general was Mary Lasker. Wow, what a character. A New York socialite, an entrepreneur, a health activist. Someone once said she had never heard the word no. And her philosophy was simple. If America could put a man on the moon, it could damn well cure cancer. All it needed was money and political will. And cancer was her next target.
Her slogan was just brilliant and devastatingly simple. If you think research is expensive, try disease. And with that, she unleashed her wealth, her connections, and frankly, her advertising genius to drag cancer out of the shadows. She was going to transform it from a private shame into a very, very public battle.
So you had this perfect alliance, right? You've got Farber, the quiet, meticulous scientist with the proof that something could be done. And then you have Lasker, this unstoppable force of nature providing the energy and the public urgency. Together, they were about to declare an all-out war.
And this ad they funded in 1969, it just says it all. The headline was, "Mr. Nixon, you can cure cancer." I mean, the sheer optimism, the American hubris of the time, it perfectly captured this feeling that, victory was just around the corner. It felt inevitable.
But, well, that initial optimism of the war on cancer, it didn't last long. It quickly became clear that the enemy was far more complex, far more cunning than anyone had ever imagined.
So this was the big, frustrating question hanging over the 1970s. Wait a minute. We'd conquered polio. We'd beaten smallpox. Why was this so different?
Those early, hopeful victories gave way to a decade of just stunning defeats. It forced science to stop and ask a much deeper question. What is this enemy, really?
And the answer they found was, frankly, chilling. See, we thought of disease as an external invader, right? A virus, bacteria, something from the outside. But cancer? It wasn't an invading army. It was a civil war. The enemy wasn't foreign. It was a distorted, twisted version of self. The traitor was born from within.
And this led to a massive breakthrough, the discovery of the oncogene. Here's the crazy part. An oncogene is just a mutated version of a normal gene, a gene we all need for growth and healing. But in cancer, that gene gets stuck in the on position. It's perpetual, uncontrolled growth. So the very same life force that builds us is the same force that, when twisted, tries to kill us. How do you fight that without destroying yourself?
So, that discovery completely changed the game. It kicked off the modern era of cancer treatment. No longer a war of brute force, but a long, strategic, and deeply personal war of attrition.
And this is where we get to the stories of modern patients, like a woman named Germaine. She's fighting a totally different kind of war. It's a war of targeted therapies, of remissions and relapses, a constant fight of adaptation, armed with drugs designed for her specific cancer mutations. Yeah, the author of the book, Siddhartha Mukherjee, described it beautifully. He said it was like watching a chess game. Every single time Germaine's disease made a move, she made an equally assertive move right back. It's not about brute force anymore. It's about strategy, trying to outwit an enemy that's constantly evolving.
And this brings us to a concept called the Red Queen effect, which comes from Alice in Wonderland. It's this idea that you have to run as fast as you can just to stay in the same place. And honestly, that's the perfect metaphor for the modern war on cancer. We develop a new drug, the cancer evolves to resist it. We're in this constant, furious arms race, running, inventing, just to keep pace.
So where does all of this leave us? Well, after this incredible 4,000-year journey, the one thing that's clear is that this story, this biography, is far from over.
And it leaves us with this really profound question. If cancer is a more perfect version of ourselves, a version that can grow and live forever, is this a war we can ever truly win? Or is it something we have to learn to live with, to manage? We don't have the final answer yet. The battle continues, not just in labs, but in the stories of patients everywhere. The biography of this emperor is still being written, one life at a time.